When you think of the Great Wall of China, what pops into your head? Probably this image of a single, massive wall snaking its way over mountains, right? The kind you see on every postcard. Well, what if I told you that whole story is kind of built on a foundation of myths?
So, let's get into it. We're going to peel back all those layers of legend and even some straight-up misinformation to get to the real story. And honestly, the truth is way more interesting than the myths.
All right, let's kick things off with the big one. You've heard it a million times, right? It was the ultimate fun fact for generations. This idea that one thing made by humans is so gigantic you could spot it from the cosmos.
Well, sorry to burst that particular bubble, but nope. NASA themselves have said it's pretty much impossible to see from orbit without some serious camera lenses. And hey, if you don't believe them, the very first Chinese astronaut, Yang Liwei, went up in 2003 and confirmed it himself. He couldn't see it. So, boom. Myth number one, busted. And believe me, we are just getting warmed up.
And that little myth actually leads us to a much bigger revelation. You know that picture in your head of one long, continuous wall stretching forever? Yeah, that's not really how it is. The reality is so much crazier.
It's true. There isn't just one Great Wall. It's more like a massive, fragmented system of walls and forts. Think of it like a patchwork quilt of defense. Different dynasties built different pieces over thousands of years, whenever and wherever they felt a threat. It was never one single grand blueprint.
And when I say thousands of years, I am not kidding. The history here is just mind-boggling. The first pieces were started way back in 441 BC. That's before China was even one country. Now, Emperor Qin Shi Huang gets a lot of the credit. And yeah, he connected a bunch of the early walls. But the classic stone wall you're picturing, the one in all the photos, that's mostly from the Ming Dynasty, which started like 1,500 years after him. Wild, right?
Okay, so what does that all add up to? Get this. If you could somehow stitch all those different pieces from all those centuries together, you'd be looking at over 13,000 miles of wall. To give you some perspective, that's more than halfway around the entire planet. Just let that sink in for a second. So you gotta wonder, right? How on earth do you build something so gigantic on top of mountains and through deserts and make it strong enough to last for centuries? Well, the secret lies in some pretty unexpected building materials.
I'm not kidding. Their secret ingredient was sticky rice. Seriously, the builders during the Ming Dynasty figured out that if you mixed a kind of sticky rice soup in with the regular mortar, it created this incredibly strong, water-resistant binder. It's so tough that even today, weeds have a hard time growing in the cracks, and it's been known to stop modern bulldozers in their tracks. All thanks to rice.
But, as amazing as that is, this feat of engineering came at a truly horrifying human price. This isn't just a story about clever inventions, it's also a story written in bone and sacrifice. 400,000, that's a conservative estimate of how many workers died building the wall just during the Qin dynasty's phase. These were soldiers, prisoners, everyday people forced into labor. And the stories say many of them were just buried right inside the wall itself.
You know, a project this massive, with so much history and so much tragedy, it's bound to have some incredible legends.
And maybe the most famous story is the legend of Meng Jiangnu. The tale goes that her husband was forced to work on the wall where he died. When she heard the news, her grief was so immense, her weeping so powerful, that a whole section of the wall just collapsed. It's this heartbreaking story that really captures the suffering of all the people who built it.
Okay, but then there's this other legend, which is just brilliant. It's about a master builder named Yi Kaizhan. He calculated that one section of the wall would need exactly 99,999 bricks. His boss, who was skeptical, basically said, if you're off by even one brick, I'm punishing everyone. So imagine the pressure. They finish the job, and what do they find? One single brick left over.
So what does he do? He's got to think fast, right? He looks his boss in the eye and says that the brick was placed there by a god to keep the wall stable. And if anyone moves it, the whole thing will collapse. Total bluff. But it worked. And the best part, you can still go see that one extra brick on the tower at Jiaoyuguan Pass today. How cool is that?
Okay, so you've got this massive 13,000-mile system built with super strong rice and at a terrible human cost. The big question is, did it even work? Was it actually an impenetrable fortress? Well, yes and no. The wall was never supposed to be this one thing that stopped entire armies dead in their tracks. It was more like the backbone of a whole system. It had forts, beacon towers for sending signals, and armies ready to move. So for things like controlling smaller nomadic raids or managing trade along the Silk Road, yeah, it was actually super effective.
But here's the great irony of the Great Wall. It was never actually breached by a massive frontal assault. When the Ming Dynasty collapsed, it wasn't because an enemy smashed through the wall. It was because the empire was rotting from the inside. A rebel army had taken the capital, and the Ming general in charge of the most important pass, he just switched sides and opened the gates. The wall didn't fall, it was betrayed.
So that brings us to today. The wall is this huge symbol of China, a true wonder of the world. But now it's facing a totally different kind of enemy.
About 1/3 of the Great Wall is just gone. It's disappeared. Between centuries of wind and rain and people, taking bricks to build their houses, huge sections have literally just crumbled away.
So the story of the wall isn't really over. It's still being written. And it really makes you think, doesn't it? If a wonder of the world can just vanish, what does it really take to save our history? And maybe, more importantly, can anything we build, no matter how great, truly be permanent?